let me ask you something. Have you ever known what to do with your money, but still couldn't actually get yourself to do it?
Yeah, the moment where logic is telling you one thing, but something deeper is holding you back. That's not a strategy problem. That's actually a subconscious problem.
Yeah. And in today's episode, I got to sit down with Ariel Kopac, a mindset coach, who shows us how deep those money blocks can actually run.
We're talking about why childhood experiences shape your financial behavior as an adult and how those patterns might be the key to breaking free.
If you've ever felt like you were sabotaging your own progress or stuck in the same cycle over and over, this episode is going to hit hard.
And this is only part one, because once we start talking about the subconscious beliefs in financial identity, well, we just got to keep it going.
So let's get into it with Ariel Kopac in part one of the conversation.
I just got out of my hypnotherapy appointment, so that was great.
What's
see a
hypnotherapy?
hypnotherapist. So hypnotherapy is where you're accessing the subconscious and working through, like I do with clients. I'm a coach. I also have a coach, and it's an opportunity for me to work through whatever might be holding me back from that next level of success or growth. So I found a hypnotherapist because I was at a point where I knew I wanted to grow, and I thought, sounds silly, but I need a me. And so I went searching online, researching, and then found this person who is clearly growth oriented, cares a lot about her clients, and wants to help them succeed and grow, which is what I do. And this is accessing the subconscious, which is a lot of the work that I do as well, but in a different way. I say I take an analytical approach, and this is more of an intuitive approach. And so hypnotherapy is where you're still consciously aware, you're still awake, but you're accessing the subconscious and can tap into more of the metaphorical and belief systems that you hold within and work through whatever might be limiting you to that growth or whatever you're working on. So I just had that appointment, so I'm feeling light and free and excited.
Nice. Are you familiar with Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology?
Yes, I am. In fact, Myers-Briggs was my first certification that I pursued independently. And I was very passionate about Myers-Briggs because of Carl Jung's philosophy and break from the mental health field, where he didn't leave the mental health field, but his theory was maybe not everyone needs a diagnosis. Maybe they're just different, not broken or wrong. And that was the foundation for the Myers-Briggs personality, which I use in my coaching. And so I love that. Yeah, I'm a fan of Carl Jung for sure.
Good. Yeah, he's one of my, him and the Buddha are like my two guys. Like I go back and forth between them all the time.
That's awesome.
That's super cool. We have something like really big in common there. Tell me, when you go through your like therapy appointments, what is it that's different with hypnotherapy to like a normal therapy session? How do they kind of get you into that state of mind where you can maybe access the unconscious a bit better?
Yeah. So in therapy, a lot of it's talk therapy, which I'm a fan of as well. I think we all could benefit from more external processing with someone that's a trusted advisor or sounding board. And so with talk therapy, you're processing your thoughts and perhaps getting a different perspective on how to think about things. But it's generally all in the conscious awareness. As we externally process, more will come up, and you'll oftentimes have different connections or awareness, but it's still all in the conscious realm. Whereas in hypnotherapy, you are choosing to go into a almost semi-sleep state where you're going into consciously choosing to access the subconscious. And so she will do the countdown from 5 to 0 and kind of stepping into the subconscious. My husband always teases me and says, "Oh, you're going to do the thing with the ticking clock that goes back and forth and say, you're getting very sleepy." I'm like, no, we don't do that. I'm always consciously aware of what's going on. But it's a conscious choice to go in and say, okay, I'm going to enter into the deeper parts of my mind and explore what's there. So it's a little more vulnerable with yourself to stepping into the unknown of what's inside versus the regular therapy where you're consciously talking about what you are already generally aware of and are seeking the connections or understanding about.
That's really interesting. Tomorrow, I actually have my appointment with my therapist. They're a traditional like talk therapist / my like kind of counselor to help me. Just like everyone else, I struggle and I have no problem admitting that. How, I'm guessing that you do that online. Is your hypnotherapy online, or do you have to meet in person for something like that?
So I do have a in-person. I say, the more you want to grow, the more support you need. I'm a believer in that. And so if you have big aspirational goals for growth or development or just fulfillment of the self that you want to be, then you want to have more support systems. So I do have a therapist that I see in person once a month, and that's more of the talk therapy and processing what's going on and working through different levels of transition of life stage, getting married and becoming a stepmom and all of the unknowns that come with that. So that's where I address a lot of those questions and challenges and sometimes confusion or uncertainty. And then in the hypnotherapy, that is actually virtual online, and we do it where we're accessing what's the subconscious beliefs and inspiration about my next level of growth and development.
Is that within like insurance networks for hypnotherapy?
No, that is independent, and I sought her out on my own and certainly saw that she was growth oriented like myself, had various certifications and training like I do, but different from me. So I thought, oh, this is great. Someone I can learn from and get value from, but also has a similar energy or approach that I do when it comes to working with clients and the care for your clients. One of the first things that she did with me actually was a handwriting analysis, which was fascinating. Being able to interpret some of my tendencies or beliefs or uncertainties simply through my handwriting. That was fascinating.
So, I mean, already to this point, we've already talked about so much of growth, of getting better, of trying to improve, is finding a support system and finding people that maybe don't push you up, but elevate you to a higher level just by virtue of them being themselves and helping you discover parts of yourself rather than them giving you that. So with that being said, can you tell me a little bit about Harness Your Hindrance, your company, and a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. A great segue. My coaching practice is named Harness Your Hindrance because I really believe that captures the philosophy, which is my belief that you can harness whatever is holding you back, and harness it may look different for a different person or also a different context. Sometimes to harness your hindrance means to, by definition, take control and make use of it. Sometimes that means to reduce the limitation of it. Sometimes that means eliminating it completely. But what it looks like for you may differ based on your context, your stage of growth, and how much it's hindering you right now. I do believe that our greatest hindrances are the ones within our own mind. So that's the basis and why I'm a mindset performance coach for business owners and entrepreneurs and sales professionals, because I believe that the key to your success lies in your mindset, and the hindrance to success is something that you can harness if you're aware of it. And oftentimes we are not simply aware of our own internal mental hindrances. So I work with clients on finding those, clarifying those, discovering those together. It's a mutual discovery process. And then we work to harness it for whatever that means for them at that point in time.
Interesting. Longtime listeners of the show know that we quote Socrates, know thyself, constantly. I think we say it at least 3 times a podcast.
That's amazing.
With knowing thyself, so many people hear that and they're like, of course I know myself. Like, I know when I'm hungry, I know when I'm angry, I know all these things, but they don't know how to go a level deeper to question the things that they take for granted, the things that they think are true inherently. Do you think that someone can grow, can like kind of learn on their own, or do you think they need a coach, an external person to kind of watch and pick up on those neuroses?
I think they can. I think few do. And I think that a factor of that is time as well as intention and awareness. Someone else, I think, really helps to speed up the process. So, I think of it like example that comes to mind is I had a client call on Tuesday, and this client shared with me in advance that they were provided a question by a consultant that they didn't have an answer to, and they wanted my assistance in the mutual discovery process. And the question was, what do you need to let go of in order to grow? And upon receiving that message, I thought, okay, well, we'll see where this leads, but I know where I'm going to start. And so we start the call and he says, I was provided this question and I didn't have an answer. And so I want to work through this and discover it with you. And I said, okay, have you received this question in any other format than visually reading the question? And he said, no. Okay, let's just start off with me asking you the question and see what comes up. Because oftentimes the subconscious will respond differently when someone else asks you the question versus when you ask it yourself. And so I said, I did prime the mind a little bit and said, it's okay for whatever comes up, no judgment, no expectation, whatever comes forth is welcome. And then I asked him the question, what would you need to let go of in order to grow to your next level? Took a moment of silence and he said, wow, and had his answer. And I joked, I said, okay, 5 minutes, we're good for the call. We don't need the rest of the hour. I was joking, of course, but the idea was he was floored that simply by being asked the question, he got the clarity of his answer. And that's what I do, is ask questions and people present their answers from their own mind. And so that, I believe he could have discovered that on his own, but when he tried on his own, he got stuck because of our mind's self-protection mechanism, maybe fear of what it might present. But when someone else asks the question, we just innately human want to give a response. We want to give an answer. So it helps to overcome some of those barriers. And if it's from someone that you trust, which you should always, if you're working with a coach, ideally you trust that coach. When it comes from someone that you trust, you also have a little bit of that openness to reveal whatever comes forth. And so I do believe he would have gotten that answer, but he was able to receive it much more quickly as a result of me asking the question.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I notice when you try to just think on things, you can give yourself so many mental outs when the question gets tough, or you'll just like your thoughts, if you actually kind of follow them through like mindfulness, you'll notice that they're not concise, they're not scripted. Like how when we have a conversation, you need to have a linear jump from thing to thing. It needs to make sense. If not, we're just kind of jumping all over the place and it's confusing. That's the way the mind works. But when someone asks the question, you can't do what you do in your brain. You have to actually like have a conversation, or you can have a conversation with yourself by writing it down or by becoming mindful of actually knowing like, oh, I'm doing that thing where I jump from thing to thing to thing. Now,
Absolutely.
earlier on, you mentioned that one of the biggest things that hold us back is the things in our own head, our own issues, our own traumas, our own whatever it is. Where do you think those things that are holding us back, where did they come from?
Birth? No, really, but they are from the beginning and ongoing. You know, there's limiting beliefs, and then there's personality tendencies, there's coping mechanisms, there's fixations, there's traumas. There's so many things that we experience and learn along the way that we then want to protect ourselves from. Sometimes it's an experience of true pain. Sometimes it's even just a perception of pain. And our mind is wired to protect us first. And so then we develop protective mechanisms to avoid, resist, or prevent pain. Psychological pain, physical pain, emotional pain. And so we develop these mechanisms for essentially feeling safe and loved and accepted throughout our lives, throughout the world, which is not a bad thing. It's just oftentimes misplaced and overused to the point that it holds us back and prevents what we want to receive out of a perceived protection. So it's from baby on, and I won't go into all the details of, child psychology, but I think that we have likelihood of developing different coping mechanisms at different stages in our childhood and then ongoing in our adult lives. So there is a lot of development of our coping mechanisms and our patterns that end up hindering us, just as there's development and growth of our positive patterns that help us and that we learn and grow from.
Interesting. So a little bit about me. My background is actually in psychology. So that's what I got my degree in. That's what I wanted to be, was a marriage and family therapist. And then I realized that maybe this isn't for me, because younger me believed that he knew all the answers. He could just like tell you like, this is what you need to do and you'll be good to go. And it took a long time for me to realize that, oh no, the answer needs to be found. Like I only know the answer for me. I don't know the answer for anyone else, because it's their journey. There's this old saying from Buddhism that if you meet the Buddha on the path, you must kill him. And for a long time, I never understood what that meant. Like, why would you want to kill the Buddha? He's wonderful. He's all these things. But when I thought about it deeper, I thought, oh, because if the Buddha is trying to guide you on your path, if he's on your path, he's not the right Buddha, because it's your path by yourself. And he's just meant to guide you from his own path through what he did. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, it took me a long time to realize that they need to find that thing for themselves. So eventually I found myself into finance and all these things, and then came around to do something similar to you did with the mindset coaching, the performance coaching, but from a financial realm. How did you get started into this business? What was your degree and where'd you go from? How did you get here?
Yeah, love it. So ironically, I had kind of the opposite, where I get asked a lot now if I studied psychology in school, and my response is no, I studied it afterwards for fun, because I'm weird like that. But just I actually went to school for business, and I fell into the insurance and financial advising field through an internship that I found in college. And that led to a lot of the discoveries that led to where I'm at now when it came to development and training and learning about people. So it was really as a need to do better work that I started to pursue what works for different people and why do certain people succeed and not others, what holds people back, all of that. And I also now reflect back and laugh because my best friend in high school told me I should be a therapist. And my response to her was, I've clarified this, but my response to her was, I don't want to deal with people's problems all day. And she said, but you're so good at it. And then I started my coaching practice, and I think a year into it, she said, Ariel, do you remember in high school when I told you should be a therapist and you said you don't want to deal with people's problems all day? I said, yes. She said, isn't that what you're doing now? I said, yes, but I'm dealing with people's problems who want to solve those problems. And my perception then, false perception in many ways, was that the difference was that in therapy, you're dealing with people's problems, but there's no solution. There's no progress or no development. I'm in therapy now. I have a different perception of that. But at the time, that's what I believed. And so I didn't go into that field. I went into business. And now I have this merging that I love of business and psychology and helping those who have a lot of weight on their shoulders with developing, growing, or owning a business to work on the mental side, because there's so much pressure and so much unknown and so much decision making that has to be done. So that's the ironic flip was really that it was after school I started studying psychology in order to be better in business. And then that led to discovery of limiting beliefs and Myers-Briggs and personality differences and how to help people overcome their mental challenges to business growth. I became so passionate about it, loved it, couldn't stop talking about it. It became very evident that this is what I was meant to do. And I believed that in my core. And so I launched my own coaching practice to be able to do that full time.
Wow. So did you go straight from working in finance from insurance to your own coaching practice, or was there a gap in there or something like that?
So my background in insurance and finance was actually in the training and development of financial advisors, though I was never one myself.
Oh, okay.
So I was recruited into training and development because I had experience and showed skill set for project management, as well as, a go get it attitude. And so I was recruited to be what's called the director of training and development for financial advisors to help them launch their practices, and worked on the skills, worked on the training, worked on the data analysis, worked on all of the sales skills. And I was able to provide all this value and insight. But the one thing that would prevent success was their mindset. So that's when I started to lean into that. And it became my passion and my obsession to the point where it was all I wanted to do.
Now you're the person who's, when you're at dinner, just talking about, oh, well, let's talk about you. And why do you think that? Why do you think that? You're asking why 5 times different ways to get down really deep till they're like, I don't know. Stop asking me these questions. I don't want you to analyze me while I'm here at dinner.
I do avoid that because people are afraid of being analyzed. And so I don't even do that, but they're already afraid that I'm analyzing them. I'm like, I'm still just a regular person. I observe the patterns just like everybody else. I just simply know what might be behind those patterns, but I don't observe something different from others. I just say, oh, they might have this belief or they might have this personality tendency. There's no judgment assigned to that observation. I think that's what people fear, is that they're being judged because of the insights that I have about people and personalities and mindset. But there's really no judgment. It's just observation, which we all do. I might just have a few frameworks to better understand the basis of what I'm observing.
Yeah. I find it so funny because in financial services, one of the biggest things that people are afraid to talk to somebody about is they're afraid of the judgment. Mm-hmm. Have you found that with working with your advisors that you work with, that's something that you have to overcome with them? Or what are some of the biggest limiting beliefs that they have that's holding them back?
Well, definitely one of the biggest when it comes for financial advisors is being that guy or that girl, that salesperson. The fear that they will be perceived as the person that no one wants to talk to or that everyone wants to avoid. And they don't want to be perceived that way because they're a person too. And they're just trying to help people or trying to build a business, take care of their families, serve clients, do what's in the best interest of their clients. And they fear being labeled or seen as the person who's, the classic sleazy salesperson. And the fear of being perceived that way is oftentimes what will hold them back from pursuing helping the person that they want to serve.
How have you found that people overcome something like that? Because even as an advisor with a decade of experience, I still feel that. I mean, when people ask me, Chris, what do you do for work? I don't even say I'm a financial advisor. I say I'm a holistic financial consultant, like to try to, because I think financial advisor is the perfect terminology, but old advisors perverted it by making it into like, let me sell your insurance salesman, or let me sell you this or everything, because financial advisor encompasses such a wide range of like literally anybody that touches money. And like a banker can be like, I'm a financial advisor. Like anyone can say it. So you have to do something that's a pattern interrupt. Like, this is what I do. Just so they ask a deeper question rather than like, oh, financial advisor, I don't want insurance, and run away.
Right. Absolutely. And as far as how I help people coach through that is I actually ask them about their association with the sleazy salesperson. Because oftentimes we have a memory, a reference, a person that they're saying, I don't want to be perceived that way. And oftentimes what they're actually alluding to is, I don't want to be the person that I experienced on the other side. I don't want to be like that guy, that girl, that person who made me feel icky. I don't want to be someone who makes people feel icky. And so I'll ask them about that person, ask them how they showed up, what they did, what they experienced, to help them delineate between how that person showed up and how they showed up, how they present to clients and to people, to help them create that separation of, I'm not like that person. Even if I'm in sales, even if I am in the same role or have the same title, that does not make me like them. And so we'll do the separation between how they presented and then how the advisor who is struggling with this presents, to create that I am not like them. I'm not going to be like them. And if I'm perceived that way before being able to even present myself, then that's the other person's loss, because I would provide true value. And then they focus on the value, the service, the opportunity to help and to serve, which is where their heart is really, coming from. And then that presents that go forward energy versus that hold back energy.
Yeah. There's a quote from Ted Lasso I always like, where it's, different people are different people. Yes. Just because they're in the same industry, the same background, the same whatever, different people are different people. Now, I like to transition the conversation a little bit and kind of move on to, so now that you're working with financial professionals, you're doing all of this stuff. What I always liked about being a financial coach myself is all the research you do, all the information, it's really me search. It's trying to get better myself through helping other people. Have you noticed with the advisors that you work with that they're willing to put in that work to be good with money, be good, quote unquote, people can't see us, good with money in order to be able to help people? Or are they just trying to push people up rather than pull them up or be at a higher level before even meeting them?
Complicated question. It's really good.
Yeah,
I say complicated.
I can preface it a bit better just because I am a chief growth officer for an RIA. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the advisors that come to me to ask questions, I'm like, well, what do you do with that? And they're like, oh, I don't do that stuff. Like, so you advise people on how to do things and you're not like following it yourself. I think that when you set your aim, you need to set a noble goal. You need to say like, this is the reason that I'm doing this for these things. And if you don't do that, then your aim is going to be something like, I'm just chasing money. I'm chasing status. I'm chasing these things that aren't the right goal. Like we on the Fi Guys always say that financial independence isn't the goal. Money isn't the goal. Freedom is the goal. Your values, whatever they are the goal to do whatever you want, because money isn't the goal. Money facilitates the goal.
Absolutely.
But yeah, sorry, long ramble.
I love that.
Your turn.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So a few things come to mind with regards to the question about, we'll reference what's the famous quote about the cobbler's shoes. The kids of the cobbler were always the ones with the worst shoes, because you may do great work, but struggle to do it for yourself or for your family at home. And that is a common trend. It does create a sense of that can be a culprit for imposter syndrome. So we do address those habits and those challenges so that they're not feeling like an imposter, because if they're continually advising someone to do something that they're not doing themselves, that does present the imposter syndrome, and then they feel like they're hiding something, and it reduces the transparency with their clients. So we do work on that and creating those habits that they do want to instill and set for themselves and for their family. So that's one piece to it. And the other piece is a little bit of an acceptance that everyone is in a different stage, in a different circumstance, and a different level of learning with their finances. So, you'll have I have clients who will meet with someone in the morning who is dealing with heavy student loan bills from medical school and just now got into a point where they're making money, and they have sacrificed so much of their time in their life that they want to go spend their money. They don't want to save it. They want to go spend it because they've worked their butts off for so long. And then they meet with somebody in the afternoon who just sold a business for $7 million and wants to make sure that they're being responsible with that. And they want to, pursue a next opportunity investment for growth. So there's that exposure to, they're not going to be like all their clients because all their clients are different, but they want to feel good and confident about the choices that they are making for their situation. And I think that is what can be authentic and true and translatable. Every situation is different, and every person deserves a personal financial plan and guidance, but you have to be doing that for yourself, meeting with yourself where you're at and instilling good habits for your future, for your goals. And your goals may be different than the person who just sold $7 million, sells a business for $7 million. It's also going to be different from the person who just graduated from medical school. But you want to instill those habits that you're doing the right thing, even if you're not where you want to be. Because if you're not doing the right thing for yourself, you're going to feel like there's something to hide from your clients, and that won't feel good.
Yeah. When you have that cognitive dissonance of like, I say this one thing, but I don't do the other thing, I think people can feel that like this person 100%. Is really talking out of their butt. Like they don't really know because you don't really know.
Yes. And also the dealing with some of the beliefs that lead to or led to the habits that they are presenting now. One of my clients, for example, we've been working together for over 4 years. And when we started working together, he kept getting into debt, falling into debt, getting back into debt, and just had this belief of this is, how I am, how this is my faulty pattern. He felt truly trapped by it and that he was stuck. He felt shame and blame, but that it was something that he couldn't escape from because he just kept falling back into it. And so we worked on some of the limiting beliefs that this is, something that he's going to always be struggling with. This is, debt is always going to be the devil knocking at the door. And so we worked on reducing that and removing that. And now he's saying, Ariel, we're going to save $100,000 this year in addition to our investments and our other things. And that fear is no longer there, but it was for a long time. And it took a letting go of what he believed he was going to always be stuck in. And that allowed him to be free. So some of the work is also what's holding you back from the habits that you want to display. What beliefs are you holding to that are keeping you in these same repeating patterns?
Interesting. I find with my coaching practice that it's very sad, but the brain is not optimized to make you happy. It's optimized to keep you alive right now. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the pattern that you keep on finding yourself in is because that's what's comfortable. It's kind of like the person that goes from relationship to relationship to relationship and keeps on saying like, I don't know why I keep on ending up with these like douchebags or these people that are just so mean over and over and over again. And it's like, well, the common issue is you. Like you're the person who's in between all of them. So when I think through that, it's hard sometimes because somebody will say, I want to be out of debt. I want to be better with money. I want to do all these things. But if they grew up in a place that was normal, again, your brain isn't designed to keep you happy. It's to keep you alive. And it knows, hey, when we're going in this debt cycle and we're stressed and not happy and all these things, at least we're alive. I don't know what's on the other side of that. So I'm going to put you back into this over and over and over again, even though you say you don't want it. There's a part of you that does want it because it knows it's going to keep you alive at least. Not happy, but alive.
Yeah. The fear of the unknown is when I'm asked what is the most common challenge or mindset limitation that people experience, it's fear. And I would say the most common fear that we run into, most frequent fear, is fear of the unknown. And that's what you're tying to there is, I may not like this, but I know this. That I don't know. And I don't know what I'm opening myself up to. I don't know what I might experience. I don't know what I might lose. I don't know what might change. And so I'm just going to stick with what I know, even if it's not ideal. At least it's known. And so working through that, a lot of times I'll work with clients on visualizing what that unknown might be once known. And so you can work through the fear of the unknown by making it known in your mind. And then there's something to pursue. But until that point, it's just unknown. And that the mind goes, no, no to unknown. I don't like unknown. That's terrifying. And I don't know how to protect you from that because that's a completely new territory. So we're just going to stay with what's known. And so imagining what the unknown could become gives you a reality to pursue. And then the mind is more likely to align to that habit change.
That fear is so hard because the fear, it gets overgeneralized into this fear means that like I will die. Like it just comes from like I'm going to fail at this and then I die and then I'm no longer exist. So I've always found that's hard to overcome. Another one that I found is really hard to overcome is acceptance. Like this is in order to do this, I'm a good person. And I'll preface this with a story. I had a client and she's allowed me to use this story with her, that back in the day when she was with her mom was a druggie, abusive, a bunch of different things. And she noticed that her mom would only love her when she would buy her things because she was separated. The parents were separated. Mm-hmm. Dad would give money. Then she'd have to go stay with mom. And then whenever she would bring money over and like buy the mom things, the mom would finally like be a little bit nice to her and like not treat her poorly. Fast forward to today, now she's in her mid-30s and she keeps on saying like, I keep on getting to these things where like I lent my neighbor money for stuff and like I don't even know him. I don't barely have money myself. So once we went back and we talked about, she went to an advisor, she's talked to all these people about it. And the advisor kept on saying, you just have to stop, just stop doing it. And then when she worked with me, we went deeper into it. And I said like, well, why? Well, let's go into the past. And we found out like, oh, you're trying to recreate this core fundamental wound, the bond of an infant and their mother. And you're trying to now fulfill that by going to every single person to be like, am I worthy? Am I loved? Am I a good person? Mm-hmm. And then at that moment, when she finally like realized, oh my God, it's all tied back to those like childhood traumas. I always say your money memories, who you are financially is usually formed by the age you're 7 years old. Yeah. So by that time, we can already determine like, how are you going to be with money? You're going to be frugal. You're going to be spendy, all these different things. But her being able to tie that back to like this common thing to when she was a kid that she never even thought about. Because when I asked her about her mom, she's like, oh no, it's fine. Like I forgave her. I've moved on. Like she's not here on this world anymore. It's fine. And I was like, okay, well, I just want to talk about her a little bit deeper. And we had to go deeper and deeper and deeper and go all the way down the rabbit hole until we hit near basement, probably not like full ground level, but toward the basement first. She's like, wow, I see it. And like, this has been my pattern for the last 30 years. And now I can finally see it. And now, just like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to dictate your life and you will call it fate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that quote. I use it in a lot of presentations, actually. It just hits home so well.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful example of how our mindset impacts our money habits. And I truly say that you cannot separate money from emotions or beliefs because they are inherently intertwined. Money is a tool, and how you use that tool, how you think about that tool, how you leverage that tool is dependent upon your mindset. And then your mindset is connected to your beliefs and your emotional responses. So, if there's a pattern with your money that you don't like, I would say look to your mindset like you did and look to your beliefs about money and how money is to be used. Because in that example, it was used to receive acknowledgement and love. And I think a lot of us fall into those patterns of using this tool for acknowledgement, recognition, or love. At the end of the day, our mind is seeking to protect ourselves physically, emotionally, and psychologically. And we feel like we need primarily two things to survive: to be safe and to be loved or accepted. Fill in the blank with whatever word in the context, but loved, accepted, recognized, seen. But to be seen, heard, and loved and safe, if we have all those bases covered, we're probably pretty content. And if we felt a lack of those at any point in our lives, then there's going to be a pattern of seeking to receive that fulfillment and get that need served. And money is one tool that can be used to try and serve that need.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.